Hey everyone, welcome to Film Rush. This is a weekly podcast where two cousins get together and talk about movies. My name is Logan Vaughn, and joining me today is my cousin John.
Hey everyone, I'm John Vaughn. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Welcome to Film Rush.
Hello everybody! It's another episode of Film Rush. We're back and we're ready for action. Logan, how are you doing this week? Are you feeling sleepy?
Feeling sleepy? No, actually, I am wearing my glasses tonight, so I'm feeling intelligent and laid back and chill.
All right, well, everyone told me that when you wear glasses, you're a nerd, but I don't feel any smarter for wearing them. So I feel like I was lied to in high school.
I mean, I don't know. I think some people wear certain frames that maybe don't necessarily fit their face the best, but if you can find the right frame and just stay in that style, then like you can pull it off. But there are some people who don't look good in glasses.
Stick to your lane, kids, but find that style that works for you and you can make glasses styling. Trust me, I am not the one that's a role model for looking good in glasses, but I believe you can do it. I believe in you. But yes, we are Film Rush, everybody, which means we're going to be getting into movies. We hope you've been having a good week so far, and we hope that this Wednesday episode is making it even better. So, Logan, since you're back now, I think we should start with you, especially since I don't have a movie to recommend this time around, because all I've seen was shit. Just kidding. Kind of. Sort of. But...
Well, that's I mean, that's a bummer to hear. Yeah, so going through typical format with movies and then shows and then our assignments. I've been watching a lot of stuff. So there are several different roads that I wanted to go down tonight, but the thing that I think has stayed with me the most and challenged me the most over the past couple of days has been 2019's The Report. This is a movie that it stars Adam Driver, and it basically takes the CIA to task for what is going on with our... Man, this is a really meaty topic to get into tonight, but it's basically the U.S.'s response in the post 9/11 era, and especially with interrogation. And we just had 9/11 a few days ago. And so I was kind of in the mood to watch something about that, and I clicked on The Report. It's over on Amazon Prime. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think this is absolutely worth going to see. You follow Adam Driver, who is a reporter. He is, or not a reporter. I don't exactly understand who he is or what he's doing, and I know he's investigating.
Calls him an FBI agent.
Yeah, he's some type of investigator, and he gets tasked by a senator, I believe played by Annette Bening, to investigate what was really going on with the CIA with our interrogations. Like, were we actually waterboarding people and doing really horrific things and human rights violations and committing war crimes? Like, did that actually happen? And this movie takes all that to task. I really love that Woodward Bernstein type feel to this movie. It's a really, really dark, juicy political thriller. It doesn't give you that like satisfying, uplifting ending either. It still kind of gives you a little bit of that bitterness at the end. And these type of really dark political thrillers, they're not something I'm in the mood for every day, but when I find a really, really good one, I have to talk about it because I don't think they're very common.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend going to check out The Report. Regardless of whatever your political beliefs are, regardless of how, accurate you think the movie might be, those are always things that we need to look into when it comes to movies that tackle such sensitive topics as this. But the story displayed in the movie itself is phenomenal. If it's anything close to the truth, then if being cynical of the government is even more understandable, I think, both the Republican and Democrat Party. So if you're like me and you're in your mid-20s and you want to be more depressed about the government, watch The Report over on Amazon Prime. I would give it like an 8 out of 10.
Nice. I mean, it's got Adam Driver in it, who is an absolute sensual cliff wall, and John Hamm, who is also a rounded, steamy Buick. I'm making
he's high on there. He's only in there for like 2 scenes,
really?
3 scenes.
John Hamm's not in there long enough in my opinion.
Annette Bening is in there way more. He was there. I just don't remember him there as much.
Well, that's a bummer. But hey, I'm a believer in Adam Driver, especially since Marriage Story. I think that he's one of the powerhouse actors out there.
Right.
So anything that flexes him on screen, I am down with. And plus, I like controversial CIA type movies. One movie that I never watched that I was interested in seeing, but I never did, was the Joseph Gordon-Levitt adaptation of the Snowden story of Edward Snowden.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
And I didn't hear anything bad about it, but I never heard anything good about it either. Like, no one really sung its praises or anything, so I never really went at it. But hey, the CIA post 9/11 was kind of I always knew this. I've heard stories. CIA after 9/11 was a little funky. So I'd be curious to watch this. So hey, I'm actually gonna have to check this out for sure now that you've talked about it.
Yeah, it covers that spot right after 9/11, like the few years after 9/11, and then it speeds it covers almost a decade.
Oh, wow.
It is an epic of a movie in that way.
Beefy movie. It's only an hour 59 comparatively.
Right. So it really will keep you engaged. There's a lot of dialogue heavy scenes, but the acting is super good in this movie. Corey Stoll is fantastic in this movie. He's really, really good. And there's just a lot of character performances in here that will just really stick with you. A lot of violent stuff in this movie. There are some interrogation scenes that are incredibly uncomfortable, so I do want to give a little bit of a warning there. But I really dug The Report. I think you should go check it out over on Amazon Prime. So, awesome. John, that was my recommend this week. I see you got something in your avoid pile. So what is on the avoid pile this week?
So the avoid pile, I'm going to have to restrain myself from screaming about. So it's avoid the Netflix. It's on Netflix now. It's not by Netflix. It's called Seventh Son. This
can't say that I'm familiar.
Absolute festering blister of a film was adapted from a series that is now called The Spook's Apprentice. It used to be called The Last Apprentice, but I think that the author thought that was too generic, and so he changed it. Either way, I have read all but one of them now, of like a 13-book series. And to this film's, I don't know, credit, I guess. I watched this in like 2014 when it came out. It was filmed in like 2011, and then they vaulted it because they're like, we know this is garbage. So then they released it during a slow season years later. And it's just a festering pile of leprosy garbage. It's just not good in every sense of the word. And it really, the amount of badness that it was made me curious, because it claims, based on the series, the book series. I was like, there's no way the book series is this bad. There is no way that a book series is this bad, and it got a film adaptation at all. So I just got the first book and read it, and the first book blew me the fuck away. It's a great fantasy series. It's dark. Like, if anyone has any interest in starting the series, it's real dark. It deals with witches, and I'm talking dark stuff, like blood and rituals and demons. It's not the darkest shit you can get, but it's definitely on the adult side of young adult, if not in the adult category. And it's just so good. And this movie is just bad. So the basic premise is that a spook has to find a new apprentice to deal with Mother Malkin, who has risen from a cage that he left her in years ago. And she is a witch who's going to regather her coven under a blood moon and take over the world. You've heard this story 1,000 times over. It's not...
Yeah, this sounds pretty standard, dude.
It's not what the books are about. Mother Malkin is not this. They wasted so many of the casting in this. First of all, the kid who plays Tom Ward, Ben Barnes, fantastic actor. Nothing against Ben Barnes, but he was way too old for this role.
Yeah, he's awesome in The Punisher.
Way too old for this role. Kit Harington is the apprentice at the beginning of the movie, and he's just a small role.
Holy crap, from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. He's not in this for long, but again, too old, but he's not even in the books as a character. He doesn't exist. But regardless, Tom Ward is supposed to be
Alicia Vikander's in here too? What the hell?
Yeah. This is a big old cast. We also have Julianne Moore and Jeff Bridges.
Jaimin Hansu?
It's ridiculous. We've got
Jason Scott Lee. Holy
Jaimin
crap.
Hansu. Sorry, I butchered your name, man. But like, you're a great actor and you're underused as hell. But like, he's in here too. It's not. Mother Malkin in the books is not this. Julianne Moore was told to play her as though she was like the queen from Snow White, I guess. That's kind of the way she does it. It's not at all what it's like in the books. The girl who plays Alice, Alicia Vikander, she's known as the girl from Ex Machina. She's the robot. She's also in Man from U.N.C.L.E. as Gabby. She's a decent actress. I mean, I've not seen a wide range, but she was really good in Ex Machina.
She's won an Oscar, I think, hasn't she?
I do not know. IMDb doesn't make it super obvious.
I know she's been nominated like at least twice. I'm trying to remember.
She's won one. It says on IMDb, but it does not outright tell me which one she won.
What did she win for? The Danish Girl?
You hit the nail on the head. Best performance by an actress in a
Nice.
supporting role for The Danish Girl, which I was not able to finish. The Danish Girl. I tried to watch that. Just not my type of film.
Yeah, I think the Danish. Yeah, we can talk about that movie another day. It's kind of one of those. You're either gonna cry your eyes out for the entire movie, or you're gonna be bored and not get it. And I was like, kind of in the middle. Yeah. So, but her performance was great.
This movie's just, this movie's just one of those. It's also a cautionary tale.
I almost want to see this just to see how bad it is.
Oh, it's bad, boy. It is bad. And the effects aren't good. The acting's not good. Jeff Bridges is hamming his role in here, and the lore of the world that they completely ignored the books and they literally ignored the books and made up lore for this world. And I don't understand why they did. It just takes more effort to make a shitty movie than it does just to adapt the books. I don't get it, but that's what they did. And I don't know, man. I want to be angrier about it, but like the more I think about it, the sadder I get, because the books are so good, and the author is kind of a horror story in my opinion, because the author got this movie deal, and long story short, basically was told via his contract that he wasn't allowed to do anything. Couldn't have an opinion, couldn't really do anything in the production process. He just had to sit quietly and watch, and he just sat on set and knew the whole time, this isn't my book, this isn't what I wrote, this isn't right, this isn't gonna work, this isn't my book, this isn't my story. I don't know why you wanted my book for this story that isn't the book. And I'm like, well, as a writer, I am never going to let that happen. If someone says, we want to adapt your book into a movie, and they say, but you don't get to have a say in it, I'm like, well, then you're not getting a movie, because fuck off.
Yep,
no.
It's my book. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. So my heart goes out to you. If Joseph Delaney ever hears this episode for whatever reason, my heart goes out to you, Ben, and I hope you get another adaptation down the road. Maybe Netflix will give you another shot. They give anyone a movie deal, I hear. And so, maybe you'll get another shot. I'd love to see that. But avoid The Seventh Son. It's got a 5 on IMDb, but it deserves way worse, in my opinion. One of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Definitely the worst adaptation out there that I can name offhand in film. So 2 out of 10, if not a 1 out of 10. Fuck off, Seventh Son.
Man, that is hot. That is a hot steaming pile of shit of a score right there, sir. You rarely go that low.
I didn't even go that low on fucking Mulan. And that movie is garbage too. So if you want to know what I think of Mulan, we have a review of that out.
Help me out here. Wasn't there a Keanu Reeves movie called Seventh something?
Oh, you're
Son,
thinking of
Night,
Ronin?
Seventh?
Are you thinking of
maybe
Keanu Reeves?
I'm not
47
sure.
Ronin.
You said 47 Ronin.
Yep, 47 Ronin is a samurai movie with Keanu Reeves from 2013. It's around the same time.
Yep, that's what I pictured when you wrote down Seventh Son. I was like, is that Keanu Reeves samurai movie? Like, what is Seventh Son? And then I had to Google it to see what it was. Seventh Son, honestly, it just from what you're describing, almost sounds like it would make a better extended TV show more than a movie series, and actually flesh out each book a little bit more. Because if it's one of those,
oh yeah, I mean, if you're actually legitimately going to adapt the book series, considering it's 13 books, it really needs a series. It's not going to be a good movie setup.
Sure.
And yeah, as I said, the books are very meaty in terms of their lore. They borrow a lot from real world folklore. In terms of the Ireland and England, that kind of folklore with bogarts and witches and a lot of those clan and mysticism stuff. A lot of that stuff out of Scotland and whatnot. So if you really want to dive into it, it really does need a series, and it needs the characters to grow throughout the whole thing. And the kids, because I think Tom is like 12 when the books start. So it could be like a Harry Potter situation where you get a younger kid and he like grows up during the show, and it would be good. It'd be a little tricky to adapt because it does get pretty damn gross by the end of the series in certain parts. A character goes to like the literal representation of hell for an entire book. So that gets, I don't know how I'd adapt that book, to be honest. That one gets pretty damn dark. But I would be down to try. Like, Hollywood, hit me up. I will adapt this series if you want me to. But yeah, Seventh Son, avoid it. And the reason it's called Seventh Son, it's just kind of funny. A spook is a guy who fights against the dark. And the reason why is because spooks are the seventh son of a seventh son. And that just line up of how they were born numerically gives them a special resistance against the dark and an ability to feel threats as a feeling of like actual cold on their skin. So they have like just this subtle advantage against the dark, being the seventh son of a seventh son, so they become spooks. It's kind of interesting. If this sounds at all interesting to you, look for this book series. I implore you to check it out. I know we're not a book podcast, but there you go.
Man's only hope lies in the seventh son of a seventh son. That's a pretty womp womp title, or not title, tagline.
Yeah, the movie's pretty womp womp too. So your avoid actually makes me kind of sad, because I saw this pop up on Netflix and I was excited to show this to Annabelle because I saw this in theaters. I don't really remember a ton of details about it. I just remember having at least a few laughs at it. So what is it about this movie that didn't jive?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, okay, this movie is funny. Like, this is a funny movie. It will make you laugh. It'll make you giggle. This is 2010's Due Date. This was directed by Todd Phillips, who is now known for being the director of Joker. And that was not the reason we watched this. Jacqueline got really excited when she saw this on my watch list on Netflix, and she was like, "You haven't seen that?" And I was like, "No." She was like, "We have to watch it." She was like, "I've only seen it once, but I remember really liking it." So we watched it. And I don't know, it made me laugh and giggle a lot, but there was something about the movie that just felt a little bit problematic for me. And about halfway through, I just kind of figured it out. But I'll come back to that in a second. So, movie's essentially a planes, trains, automobiles wannabe. It's your two people get stuck traveling together in a bad situation, and they're both really annoying. One's really dumb, one's really mean, and they basically bully each other for 2 hours, and by the end of it, they become best friends for life.
As one does.
And that's literally... Yeah, it's that. That's what happens here. That's what Due Date is. It's pretty one note in that way. With Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis. It's got some great moments. It's got some really funny scenes. The thing of it is, for me, I think there's a mean-spirited tone in this movie. I think this is kind of one of those mean-spirited comedies that kind of says, hey, you know what? It's okay to be a complete asshole, and then just apologize, and like everything should be fine.
Yeah, I think I kind of remember what you're talking about.
There's no like consequences to you like beating a child or anything like there's a moment here where Robert Downey Jr. like accidentally like punches a kid, and then like swears him like it's our little secret, kind of like, and it just kind of gives you the like, I'm not so sure about this kind of humor. And I know it's 10 years old, but there's something about this that just felt like particularly not politically correct, if that's a way to say it. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the right way to phrase that would be, but there's just a mean-spiritedness. Robert Downey Jr. is a straight-up dick in this movie. Like, it is at least the halfway mark in the movie before he becomes anything remotely like likable. Like, you cannot have empathy for his character in the first half. They just make him so mean to random people for no reason, just in an unnecessarily brutal way.
It kind of seemed like weird practice for his later role in The Judge, because like in The Judge, he starts off as kind of a prick, and then he gets a little better throughout the film, but he never starts out as mean-spirited as Due Date. But I do remember that he is pretty darn mean in Due Date. And I don't
Okay.
quite know why, because it never really felt like it was all that motivated by the film. Like, I don't remember if he even has a reason for it in the film, like if there's a backstory reason for him just being a bitter asshole. But yeah, I remember that he's mean, and Zach Galifianakis just plays the dumb guy again. That was really the thing that I didn't like about this film when I saw it in theaters.
The man-child, yeah.
Yeah, is that Zach Galifianakis was just doing his fucking man-child thing again. And that's fine a few times, but it's kind of like the same thing with Will Ferrell, or honestly, like a better example would be like Adam Sandler.
Of course,
where it's like,
they're two good examples.
Just stop doing the same fucking thing over and over again. Add a little bit of variety to it. If this is going to be a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles ripoff, then like pull a little bit off of Candy, like the guy who was in that movie that played such a dumb guy, but a guy that you could really like at the same time, despite being dumb, as opposed to just being an idiot and frustrating me.
I think this movie sends some pretty ridiculous comedic messages, and I think some of these subliminal readings can be problematic. Manipulation is okay, lying is okay, physical abuse is okay. Like, I don't know. I think there's some jokes in here that just don't really land well. So Due Date it's funny. I laughed and had an enjoyable experience from like a laugh count perspective, I would say. But a lot of times it's kind of like the difference between like laughing with somebody and laughing at somebody. You know, the old saying your mom used to say kind of thing. And I felt like this movie was more like laugh at the dumb fat person who's falling over every 3 minutes in the movie, more than laugh with them, because they're such a really smart comedic genius, which he actually is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This movie just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And it particularly, as most comedies do, kind of just get long and slow in the tooth at the end. I think most comedies tend to run 15, 20 minutes too long, and this one definitely felt that way. So it didn't have great pacing either, and that does not make for a better experience. Crazy thing is, it's only an hour and a half, but
it's real short.
Yeah, it felt like the movie could have found a way to end 15, 20 minutes earlier. So I thought it was a pretty thin movie as well. It's not very meaty or satisfying. I think there's just a lot better comedies out there to spend your time on, so I would say avoid Due Date. I gave it like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
'Tis a bummer, because I remember this as watching this in theaters, but I also remember being a little underwhelmed. But again, I'm kind of a bad audience member when it comes to Robert Downey, because I always put him on a pedestal, and then not to say he always disappoints me, because he doesn't always disappoint me by any means, but like I always kind of expect a little bit more. Especially in his side roles. I really like him in The Judge, but I also understand that in The Judge, he's playing Tony Stark for the most part again, just in a different world. Like, I think Robert Downey has kind of an issue right now. He's got kind of an identity crisis right now where he's just plays Tony Stark all the time, or at least a variation of Tony Stark. And I think Due Date may actually kind of suffer from that a little bit still, because Due Date was 2010? Is what you said?
Yeah, 2010.
And so he is right there at the Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2 area. So he is getting into that Iron Man role. And I've yet to see him break from
2010 is when Iron Man 2 came out,
I think
right?
so. It was definitely around there.
And Iron Man 3 was 2013. So, yeah, I think so. So yeah, the ego was probably I don't know. I don't
know. I couldn't.
I don't
tell
want to criticize him too much for the movie as much as I want to criticize Todd Phillips' directing. To be honest,
yeah, it's definitely not all his fault by any means.
Right.
Definitely not.
He did a good job. Like, their performances are still good. There's just some scenes and some setups and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I love some ridiculous things in my movies, and I love watching movies with mean people in them. I love the Joker. I have a Boba Fett tattoo. Like, I'm all down for meanness. There's just a difference between when you're taking it seriously and when it's a how funny it is to do this to somebody. Look at me push this person over. It's that bullying sense of humor that I just don't care for, and that's kind of how I felt. I think that could be a reason I didn't like the Joker either. There's just that odd tinge of anger in the movie that I didn't fully understand or want to experience. So I would say avoid Due Date.
Awesome. Well, we will move on then. We are overdue to be on the shows. Haha. So there's a segue for your ass, but we are on TV shows now, so I'm going to jump into my recommend, which I'm actually kind of excited to talk about, because I don't know what drove me to click on it, But this is kind of a crossover of interests. We have a movie-based podcast, but we also, a little maybe not well-known detail about us, we love video games. Like, we really love video games. I played video games since I was 8, younger, since I was tiny. And this show is called High Score. It's a documentary about the rise of video games, pretty much, all the way back to like Space Invaders.
Oh, this sounds sweet.
It is pretty dope, and it's a slick documentary too. Like, it's well edited. It's got snazzy pacing. It's got some interesting interviews with people from Japan, like some big names in Nintendo. The guy who created Space Invaders. The guy who did the soundtrack for Sonic. We were talking about the guy who basically built Sega in North America, or in the West in general, is a guy that's in here. They talk to him. It covers a huge gambit of that like 80s, 90s video game, talking about how they came to be, how the market crashed, how Nintendo saved it, how Sega came to rise up against Nintendo, yada, yada, yada. I only have 2 episodes left. We're about to get into the violent video games, because like they do each episode's like about a specific thing. So like one episode was about Sonic and Sega and what that did against the market. The one before that was about Nintendo. Now this one's going to be about violence in video games, the rise of Mortal Kombat and all those games when they first started popping up. So I'm really excited about that one. I'm not sure what the last episode's going to be, but I've blasted through it so far. I've just taken a bit of a break to not like completely swipe past, because I kind of get mad at myself when I watch a show too quickly and I don't even absorb it really all that much. So I kind of took a small break, but I'm going to probably watch this tomorrow. High Score. I honestly can't recommend it highly enough, especially if you have an interest in video games and even a passing interest in the history of video games, because I'm not by any means a video game history buff. There are people out there that know a lot more just random stuff about video games from the 80s and 90s than I do, but this was just a lot of fun to consume.
Yeah, and I'm the type of video game player that plays every single game on the easiest setting possible, because I'm there for the story, bitches, not the challenge. So
valid.
This sounds perfect for me, because I want to know the history of video games, but I don't want to do a whole lot of research on it. So watching a 6-episode miniseries is perfect. That was... honestly, like just these types of documentaries, I've been watching a ton on Disney Plus, probably like 20 that I could package all in one review, basically. 20 different documentaries that I've been watching over there. So High Score sounds super cool. Thank you for recommending this. I think it is a winning recommend. I want to end recording now so I can go watch episode 1.
Hey, it's worth it. I highly recommend it. So speaking of recommends, what is the show that caught your interest or has your eye this week?
All right. So my recommend is a no-brainer. But I don't know if I've ever actually recommended it on Film Rush or not. And if I have...
I don't think so.
If I have, it's been a long time, but I was doing some thinking over the summer because I watched Avatar back in like April and May. And I was like, what are my top 5 shows of all time? And I start writing them down and ultimately settled on my top 5, and one of the shows in there was something that Jacqueline had never seen, and it's something that I haven't fully watched all the way through in a long time. So I've been rewatching some of the later seasons over the last couple of weeks, and I am very glad that I put it in my top 5 because it is one of the best fucking shows I've ever seen. But Breaking Bad, it is an obvious top 5 best TV show of all time. I absolutely love this show. I've maybe met 1 or 2 people in my whole life who didn't think the show was awesome or at least really good. This is on Netflix right now, so this is available to go watch. I believe it is 6 seasons long. It's a slow burn thriller that gives you an inside view into an insane madman genius, a boring regular suburban dad who is a high school chemistry teacher, gets sick with cancer, and partly because he needs the money, partly because he having a midlife crisis and believes he's about to die and wants to go out with a bang, so he decides to become a meth cook.
He just makes meth.
You know, one of those shows.
I'm dying anyway, might as well make some fucking meth.
Bryan Cranston puts out maybe the single best TV show performance I've ever seen as an actor playing a TV character over an extended period of time. He is just iconic in this role. It is so much fun. This is one of the best TV villains as well, with Gus Fring. Jesse is one of my favorite TV characters of all time. I'm definitely in the pro Skylar camp. That is an often debated fan topic. Do you like Skylar? Do you not? I'm a huge Skylar fan. At first I wasn't, but I've come around over the years. But this show, it's really, really deliciously fun to get into the mind of such evil, horrible people, because I enjoy, not enjoy, but I feel like in order to appreciate the light, you need to have an understanding for what the darkness really is.
Poetic.
And I feel like that's true not just for movies, but for real life, but particularly with movies. When you have a deeper sense of what the badness is, it gives you a greater appreciation for the good. And so watching Breaking Bad is kind of one of those experiences where you get to see Walt play out several super shady ethical decisions throughout the show. And you can see how each one over time begins to chip away at who he really is and kind of break down this facade and bring out this inner alter ego that is this Heisenberg character. And towards the end of the show, where he really just fully steps into Heisenberg, and the Walter White character per se is gone, and he's just all Heisenberg. And it's very much the Anakin into Darth Vader story, but in a New Mexico meth cook mafia crime show type vibe.
Literally never heard anyone use Star Wars to pitch Breaking Bad before. You like Star Wars, right? You like Breaking Bad. I know that's not the equivalent you're drawing here, but that's funny.
It's completely fair. But yeah, just that descent into madness. I know that's a phrase I'm using a lot, but the investigation into the dark side. You know, what happens when you let your dark side take control? Mm-hmm. That is, I think, a question every person should be asking themselves. And I think this show is a great insight into what happens when you feed that dark side and when you let it win. Just how far you can go, how high you can soar, but then how bad you get burned at the end. So Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows of all time. And if you haven't seen that yet, like, seriously, how have you not seen Breaking Bad? Get on it, John, please. I feel like you haven't seen it.
I haven't.
Just by your reaction, but have you seen Breaking Bad? You have not. Okay.
But from what you've said, apparently Yoda's been fucking holding out on me, and you can have meth if you go to the dark side. But probably can. Honestly, it's the dark side. But
join the dark side. We've got meth.
Breaking Bad. I watched and have consumed the Sons of Anarchy series over and over and over again, multiple times through. And every time I've told people that, they're like, "Hey, have you seen Breaking Bad?" I'm like, "Nah." And they're like, "Dude, if you love Sons of Anarchy, you should watch Breaking Bad." And chances are very high that I would like Breaking Bad, if not love it. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's sort of like a glorious building that at the very top of the tower, there's a lot of money. But there's a lot of floors to walk to get to the top of that tower.
Yes.
For that money. And it kind of comes down to the question of, do I want to do that? And Breaking Bad has this reputation now of being one of the most legendary shows ever, especially for, I believe it was AMC that made Breaking Bad.
It was.
And one of AMC's most successful, best shows ever. And it was the show that convinced me, I haven't even seen the show, but it also convinced me, along with many other fans, that Jesse Eisenberg was a terrible cast for Lex Luthor, mostly because he was terrible for the role, but also because they didn't cast Bryan Cranston as fucking Lex Luthor, which
perfect.
He would have been pitch perfect, amazing, awesome, great, fantastic in the role, and he still would be. And it's stupid that he never was cast in that role. And so I tell myself all the time, someday I'll click on it. Someday I'll watch it. And then I never do. And I'm not sure why. I couldn't give you a really good scientific reason why. I just don't for some reason. But hey, you're still hoping.
Yeah, it is absolutely a slow burn. So the first season, it's a little bit slow, but like I'm pretty sure the very first episode, he is cooking meth in an RV in the middle of the desert in his whitey tidy underwears. So
Yes, the famous whitey tidies.
yeah, it's not like it takes a whole season for him to start cooking. Like that happens right off the bat, but he goes from how do I cook a few batches in an RV to make like, I don't know, he needs like $70,000 or $700,000. After a while, he's like assassinating people and moving political chessboard pieces around and putting hits out and doing all kinds of shady shit. And it ultimately becomes like, I've seen part of Sopranos. I haven't finished The Sopranos yet, but it ultimately gets to that level of the Sopranos type show where you have this huge mafia network just moving throughout season to season, and it's just a really, really fascinating organism to watch on screen. So I really think you would eat the shit out of Breaking Bad.
Someday I will. It'll have to happen at some point. It's inevitable. But is there anything else you want to say about Breaking Bad? Otherwise, we can move on to my avoid.
No, I think it's shorter
done a
than
very good job selling it.
I think it's shorter than Game of Thrones in terms of commitment time.
I haven't even finished Game of Thrones. I'm about halfway through that.
I could be wrong. Like it's possible Breaking Bad's an hour longer for all I know. But I'm pretty sure Breaking Bad is 6 seasons.
I'm pretty sure it's shorter.
Game of Thrones is 7. So anyway, yeah, no, that's it for my show this week. That's everything I have in my movies and my TV shows. So what else do you have, sir?
I just have something that just pissed me off a little bit. So Netflix came out, and I think it's because they're starved for content. I discovered there's 2 Witcher documentaries on Netflix, and I don't know why they're split into 2, but one of them is called Making the Witcher. I think the other one is like Behind the Witcher or something like that. Making the Witcher is a single 45-minute or like not even an hour long thing that's basically just a Blu-ray featurette. It's just it's pitched as being like get a look behind the scenes of how they made The Witcher. But it's really just a promotional thing that if it had been released on DVD, you would get it in the special features, because Making the Witcher there's everybody who gets interviewed is in a blank black room or whatever, and they sit in a chair and there's a single camera in front of them, and you get like a single sizzle line, and then it'll cut to shots and stuff from the show, and someone's talking in the background about how Henry Cavill had a lot of focus, and and he did all of his own stunts, which is every producer's nightmare. Ha 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 ha. And then it cuts to the next person doing an interview, and they say 2 sentences, and then it cuts to another subject entirely. They go through the highlights. They talk about Geralt as the Witcher. They talk about the woman who played Yennefer for a little bit, and she mentions that she didn't prep for the role at all. Like, she didn't read about Yennefer. She knew nothing about the character or the show when she auditioned for it. But that's like a throwaway line that she throws out, and then they just talk about Yennefer for a bit longer, then they move on to the next subject. This whole thing was just scatterbrained, like little trailer thing for the show itself. And even when they get to Yaskir and they talk about the song that they wrote and that took over the fucking world for a hot minute, I think they talk about that song for like a grand total of 2 or 3 minutes. And then they move on.
Oh, that's weird.
And I'm like, that...
I would have expected them to cover more.
Yeah, I was like, what was the writing process like? Did anyone think this song was going to be popular? Did they think that it was going to be, nothing special? And then they were shocked that it became basically everyone's earworm around the entire world? Or, no, none of that. They just boop off of that. And it's just really annoying, and it's non-content. And I think they put it out because the pandemic threw a lot of things to a halt in terms of production and new incoming content. And so they just threw this together. The really weird thing about it is that the other Witcher one is a series of episodes, but it's more about the creative process of writing The Witcher and finding the story of The Witcher rather than the production of it. But the set that the woman who was the showrunner for the entire series, the room that she's being interviewed in for that documentary or behind the scenes is the same one from Making the Witcher. So they shot them at the same time. So I'm not sure if Making the Witcher is footage, and I haven't watched the other one yet. It's on my list. But I'm wondering if they took unused tidbits of interviews and behind-the-scenes stuff from that one Witcher series and then edited it into a shorter bite-sized one to make an additional Making the Witcher one, and then release that on Netflix just to have more Witcher content to get more traffic. And if that's the case, fuck you, Netflix. I'm still mad that this even exists because it's a non-thing. It doesn't give you any substance. It's like eating cotton candy. You're like, wow, I actually feel worse for that activity. I wish I hadn't eaten that. I'm probably less healthy because of it. So it was a little annoying in my opinion.
Man, that's rough. If that's true, like, I get needing to create, Frankenstein documentaries. I think I'd rather have an hour 15-minute episode that is good rather than two shorter ones that suck. But I haven't seen The Witcher yet, so I'm definitely not going to be checking this content out anyway. I'm not the right candidate to verify your opinion, or not verify, but to
give me
discuss
validation
this with you. I can't, validate you. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I haven't seen The Witcher yet. I still want to. It's just one of those 30 shows on Netflix that you keep saying you'll want to start and probably never will, but you'll keep saying it for 3 more years. So I'd like to get to The Witcher, but doesn't sound like you enjoyed this experience. I mean, I can't believe that they would do that, honestly.
I mean, I just looked it up on IMDb sloppy. And it's only 30 minutes. I even gave them benefit of the doubt just now and said maybe it's 45 to an hour. No, it was only 30 minutes, which just tells me, I think, even more that it was just unused interview tidbits and promotional bits from the other series that I haven't watched yet that they just Frankensteined into this.
Must be.
So
it's weird,
I'm
though.
upset. So avoid Making the Witcher. I don't know what the other one is called offhand. But it's, one of them is only 30 minutes and it's not a series. The other one is a series of episodes. So if you find that one, it's called, here we go. It's called Inside the Episodes, The Witcher. And it's a docuseries that's got 8 episodes. Oh, motherfucker. I put it on my list without looking because I just saw it was multiple episodes. Each episode is only 5 minutes long.
Oh, weird.
Oh my God. There's nothing.
It's not a documentary.
There is nothing to this. Absolutely nothing.
It's a YouTube clip.
Yeah, this is just shit you put on YouTube to promote your fucking show before it comes out. This is just annoying.
Yeah, and that's on Netflix?
Yeah, this is annoying. This is non-content. I feel kind of a responsibility to watch it because I'm ripping on the other one, so I should give people an idea of what this is, of whether or not it's worth watching, but I just don't want to give Netflix the traffic on it and reward them for this weird behavior, because I do want to know what Making the Witcher was like. This show was very well produced. It was, the writing's not the strongest in everything, but I had immense enjoyment from this show. The time jumping sucked ass, but once you get past the time shit, the rest of the show was incredibly enjoyable. So I want to know the behind the scenes. Give me everything you can of the actor's process, the production process, everything you can. And this just tells me that I don't think that they even planned to do that, because it requires forethought to have a behind the scenes camera and crew to do that type of stuff. And so I don't think they did. So then when the show came out and became very popular, they were like, fuck, we need to drag out the awareness of this show. We need to have a series about the making of, but we didn't film any behind the scenes shit. So let's just interview some people and use footage from the show itself to play B-roll over interviews. And that looks like that's what this is. And that is super annoying and disappointing. I know you guys didn't film a behind the scenes stuff necessarily. And if you did, fuck you for not showing me. Cause where is it if you did film it? But yeah, I don't know. That's disappointing. I didn't.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of? I'm gonna take your rant. I'm gonna spin it, and I'm gonna spin it into my own rant. Reminds me of those horrible, awful rip-off trailers they dare to call featurettes. They'll release at cons.
Oh yeah,
and it's a 4-minute featurette, and it's 20 seconds of...
It's just the trailer chopped up with some interview in it. Yeah,
exactly, and it's the same thing. this movie is amazing. There's no one who's ever made a movie like this before. No one but that white male director over there could have ever made this movie like it's being made right now. You're going to be extremely excited when you're sitting in your theater. Like, they're all the same.
Yeah.
They all say the exact same thing. Like, there's nothing new. I think they did this for the Suicide Squad. That's the most recent one. But that's essentially what this sounds like it is. It's just a bunch of people fluffing up the movie. Like, of course, they're not going to sit there and say, like, man, this director was actually a real dick. Like, I'm actually starting to believe Hollywood's a bunch of pedophiles because of what I've seen my director do. Like, you know, they're not going to actually say anything real. This
movie was the worst thing I've ever participated in. Whoa.
Yeah, I want that documentary stuff, like, after the movie has come out. Like, why has this type of documentary stuff not become, like, its own pocket of streaming yet? Because this should be something streaming services should be, I think, like, fighting to be the best at.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because, like, that was the thing, like, Blu-rays and stuff, like, when I was a kid growing up, you paid more for the collector's edition so that you got all these hours of behind-the-scenes footage kind of thing.
Yeah, they know that the desire's there. I mean, like, because Lord of the Rings... Holy shit, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit have some of the most comprehensive behind-the-scenes, they call them appendices, because of the books.
Hours and hours.
Hours and hours. And I've watched those just as much, if not more. Definitely when it comes to The Hobbit, I've watched the behind-the-scenes way more often because that stuff's fascinating.
I need to get into those. I need to see those.
I love that is, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are 100% top tier behind-the-scenes and what everyone should aspire to do. 100%. And I agree. I'm shocked that more places haven't picked up on the fact that people love this kind of information. Documentaries kind of scratch that itch that behind the scenes do, where you are curious how your favorite filmmakers made these movies. Are you kidding me? Who wouldn't want to know what it was like to make a Bond movie? What it was like to make, you know, The Witcher? You know, like give us this behind the scenes stuff and plan it as your part of your content. And I don't get why there isn't a whole like category on Netflix that's just called behind the scenes.
Sure, of course.
Where it's just that long list of show after show after show that had behind the scenes and movie that had behind the scenes. I don't get it. Because as you said, you used to pay more to get that behind the scenes stuff on discs. So they're aware that there is at least somewhat of a demand for it. But then they don't meet the demand. And they're supposed to be the professionals.
Yeah. I think
I don't get it.
Like, especially with the Mandalorian BTS over on Disney Plus, that was so comprehensive and just informational and entertaining. Like, I can't believe there's not more content like that out there. Like, it really does surprise me that platforms haven't leaned into that. Especially since it's starting to get more vertical. You're starting to have more vertical columns and stuff. So, like, the movies that Netflix is releasing as originals, I understand they buy a lot of those. Mm-hmm. But they also produce some of their own movies, correct?
Yeah.
So why aren't they assigning a documentary crew to each one of their own Netflix originals? And then you can have all of that behind-the-scenes footage. So whenever you have a Netflix original just explode, like you've got The Kissing Booth Part 2 or whatever, just explode. And for 2 weeks, it's one of the top trending movies. And then right as it's starting to fade out at that 2-week mark, you drop a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff, and then it floats your movie for another week or a couple of days at least.
Yeah.
I really don't understand why that strategy isn't used more, because I know people would eat that up.
I mean, it's marketing 101, isn't it? That's how you maintain content awareness. That's what you do on YouTube. That's what you do pre-release for movies. You release a trailer, and then after a certain amount of time, you release another trailer, and then right before the movie comes out, maybe you release some other special featurette or some other bullshit just to raise internet awareness again, and then you release the movie. Now it's post-content. You've released the content. You want people to keep consuming it and draw in new people. Release the behind-the-scenes shit. Where is my behind-the-scenes shit? Netflix and everyone else. Now, at this point, it's not even just about Netflix anymore. This is for everyone who does original content, including you, movie studios. Streaming services are not the only ones that need to do this. You all, I've always been annoyed at the lack of behind-the-scenes stuff, and I think that a lot more people would find a passion for not just movie making, but storytelling at large if more behind-the-scenes stuff happened. Because Lord of the Rings, that I wouldn't be literally where I am today if it hadn't been for the behind the scenes on Lord of the Rings. I would not have decided to be a storyteller. I would not have gone into movies. I wouldn't have explored story making really and any of the facets that I have. Maybe I would have gone into it from a different avenue. I don't know how destiny necessarily works. It's a bit too heavy of a topic for this podcast, but it definitely was the spark that kind of lit the fire under my ass to get into storytelling at large. And if that just isn't there for future people who don't have that behind the scenes content to spark it under their butt like that, then who's going to make the movies of tomorrow? That's all I'm saying. But yeah, making The Witcher was garbage. Back to bring it back to the topic at hand.
But yeah, making The Witcher. Nice.
Speaking of that topic. All right. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed that little aside there of our passion about behind the scenes stuff. But speaking of passion, there are a lot of people out there that have a lot of it overflowing and they decide to make a show about it. And those are called podcasts. And so we like to highlight a podcast that obviously deserves a moment in the spotlight because they also deserve a chance to have an audience, just like anyone else who puts effort into something that they genuinely care about. So just stick around for a few seconds to hear from these folks and see if it's something you're interested in. And we'll get right back into it with the individual reports right back.
We were actually, me and my friend here.
He points to a cat.
Oh, you're friends with a cat?
Yes, he's one of those Dreamlands cats. So he's more than a cat.
Yes, and he is very lucky to consider myself his friend.
What did he say?
He said that I was lucky to consider myself his friend.
Oh, okay.
I do feel that way.
Okay.
I don't have too many friends.
You really aren't that bright, are you?
No.
Hey, it's me, Adam, the DM over at Microphones and Monsters. You just got done listening to a short clip from our show. Microphones and Monsters is a Cthulhu Mythos 5th edition actual play podcast. We ask you to join us every week, Monday and Friday. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find all of our links at microphonesandmonsters.com.
All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are now in the individual report section where we report back on the movies that we were assigned the last episode to watch and report back on. So, Logan, we went on a whole tangent with me on The Witcher and the behind-the-scenes stuff, so let's jump into yours. You were assigned a very goofy movie. You weren't even assigned the goofy movie. I just realized that's an actual movie. It's a goofy film. Spaceballs. What did you think of Spaceballs?
All right, Spaceballs. I was not sucked in by the magic. This movie felt so dated and had such low production quality that I could tell it was a joke. I could tell that when this came out in 87, I would have loved this like crazy. This would have been something I would have like shown to my friends and watched a lot if I were in like the late 80s, early 90s. Being in 2020, this movie just doesn't work. Like it just feels so
doesn't quite hold up.
Yeah, so dated. I've had all of the best pranks, or not pranks. I've had all the best moments spoiled for me by this point. I knew what ludicrous speed was. And
that's a problem, yeah.
I'd seen the scene where they're watching themselves in the present on TV, and I was familiar with a lot of those really iconic jokes in the movie. So it was it was a little bit of a challenge for me to get through, but mostly because I don't typically watch your spoof kind of comedies like this very often.
Sure.
I'll watch there may be a few that I could list. Spaceballs would be one, honestly. Galaxy Quest would be another one. Lego Batman, I think, would be a space movie.
Ooh.
A spoof movie. But when it gets into your Spaceball type humor, like it just, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of Mel Brooks movies that are super near and dear to my heart. I think this is just kind of one of those like pockets in movies that I just don't quite understand, but I'm okay with other people loving it. I just don't fully get it myself. So I don't know. It was weird. It was weird to see a franchise that I love to pieces be misrepresented in such a cute and endearing and funny way in the movie, but at the same time, it was just so cheesy. Like, so cheesy and so silly that I had a hard time taking it Seriously. Where are you at on Spaceballs? Have you seen this?
I'm kind of in the same ballpark. It's definitely been a while since I've watched it. Because it's very telling. I've never felt the desire to actually go back to it. And I did find enjoyment for it, but I agree with you that the Mel Brooks comedy, that whole series of humor, never was really my exact cup of tea growing up. The closest I ever got to that was really Monty Python, but even then I wasn't really in on that one either. I know they're not necessarily comparable, but like that just comes to mind. The Spaceballs, yeah, there are some classic jokes in there that are extremely hilarious. You mentioned several of them. And yeah, the rest of it does feel really cheesy. It is very dated, and I have a hard time when something hits a certain level of cheese that taking it seriously isn't really the right term, because you're not supposed to take it seriously. And I get that, but like you gotta buy it somehow. And if I don't buy it at all, then I don't know exactly where I'm left to go from there. And I don't think that there's a better Star Wars spoof out there. I'm not one of those guys that'll tell you like, "Oh, Family Guy did it better," because that'd be terrible to say. But I think that Spaceballs had its day, and there are definitely people out there that if you find enjoyment for it and you still watch it today, I know that there's a huge internet community that references the holy hell out of Spaceball every day. And that's fine. Power to you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. It's very wholesome, and it's a very good thing to enjoy. But it's just not quite my cup of tea.
I haven't seen all of Mel Brooks. I like Robin Hood Men in Tights and Young Frankenstein. Those were two movies my parents let me...
Young Frankenstein's good.
My parents actually let me watch those when I was a kid. So I grew up watching those movies and have like fond memories of those movies. But Spaceballs was... I don't know. I think it was just... something a little bit too silly. I don't know that I could explain it. It was just an odd sense of humor and hard for me to get into. So I wouldn't recommend Spaceballs. This is one of those movies where like I almost just prefer not to give it a letter grade, or not a letter grade, but a score, I guess.
It may not need one. Like it's one of those films that's so ubiquitous with just internet consciousness now that it just doesn't, it's not really about the movie anymore. It's kind of just yes, and it's so much of its era that like, if I'm ranking this in 87, this could have easily been, something like an 8 or a 9 or a 10. Yeah.
If I'm ranking this in 2020, it's probably going to be more like a 4, 5, or 6, and I gave it a 6 because I wanted to be kind to it out of respect for the datedness. But that's I was being a little bit kind with how I actually rated my experience with watching it. So,
sure.
Spaceballs, but that's me. You watched a movie this week as well. I was not the only one. You also had an experience.
I did.
I want to know what you have to say about your movie.
I definitely had an experience. It's Nightcrawler, Jake Gyllenhaal's Nightcrawler from 2014, I think. So this film is about a freelance videographer who is off kilter as an individual, and that's putting it nicely.
It's a good term.
Basically, he doesn't have a career whatsoever. You open the film seeing him stealing chain link fence. I'm pretty sure he straight up murders a dude, and this is like first 5 minutes. This is not necessarily spoiler, like right out the gate. And he goes off to try and hawk chain link fence, manholes, and stolen copper wire for money. Like, this guy does not have a life plan. And his path just puts him on a crash course with the career of chasing down police calls about tragedies that are happening, whether they be murders, car accidents, what have you, and getting there first and filming them, and then real quick selling them to news places so that the news place can use it as B-roll when they're reporting. And he ends up then taking it to the nth degree, where other places were satisfied with just hearing the call, getting there quickly, filming it respectfully, or at least, not crazily, and then selling it to relevant news studios. He goes a little wild on it. And I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but everything about this film when it comes down to the technical side, the acting, the filming, the score, everything is done good. This film is technically fine. You know, you could argue about pacing, but I think honestly pacing discussions on Nightcrawler would come down to like taste of pacing. This film is arguably a little slow, but that really comes down to how interested you are in the plot. I feel like if you're enthralled, you're going to feel like it flies by. I think the big problem for me that came down to it's just taste. I think my taste is not for this film. I didn't like Jake Gyllenhaal. I know you're not supposed to like Jake Gyllenhaal's character per se, but I really didn't like him. Like, very much, to the point where I just wasn't interested to see where his journey took him. I just didn't care, because I wanted someone to just tear his head off. Just end him. Be done. He's not contributing to society. Break his neck. Call
Same.
it done. Move on.
I was waiting for him to get that moment towards the end.
Yeah, I wanted someone to just, rip off an important body part and send and walk on. But not to spoil, he doesn't die. Like, I'm not spoiling anything. His character doesn't get killed. But yeah, this just wasn't my cup of tea, and I get why people do like it. I get that rush that the film provides. I get that this character is mean, but he's mean because I think something's actually like literally wrong with him. Like, he's got, I hesitate to say he's on the spectrum because that sounds, that's almost insulting to people who are, but like, he's not all there. Maybe chemically imbalanced, head injury, who knows? But the character just isn't.
Antisocial personality disorder is probably what I would. I'm no psychiatrist, but that would be my first bet. Would be some type of personality disorder.
Yeah,
because he's cold. He's so cold and menacing. Doesn't give a shit about human life. He wants to make money. He wants to be safe. He wants to be protected. He wants to talk like this over you. You have no voice.
Yeah,
and he controls everything. Like that he just powers like right over everyone in that movie, and he's nice until he figures out how to manipulate everyone else in the movie, and then he'll twist, and it's I dig the juiciness of that. I will agree with you, it is a little bit sleepy. There have been a few times I've fallen asleep watching it, but I've seen this enough to know that I dig it, and it's my taste. But it's also a certain mood.
Yeah, and it may have been that.
It's not like a feel good any kind of night. It's also a mood kind of thing. So
yeah,
I think there's actually been a couple of times Jacqueline's asked to watch it, and I've been like, I'm not in the mood. Like, I need to see something else besides that tonight. Like, that's not the type of zone I need to go into. But I
will say, in regards to his performance, I saw, maybe this is just me in my eyes, but for some reason I saw Jake Gyllenhaal and a lot of, I wouldn't say like similarities, but there's comparativeness in my opinion to Jake Gyllenhaal's character in this film and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I'm not sure where I would necessarily put that crossover happening in my brain. But at some point in the movie, I was watching it and I was like, you know what? I kind of see that performance. I know they're not comparable at all because Joaquin Phoenix's Joker happened, like literally just happened. And this was in 2014. But I looked at it and I was like, you know what? I think I want Jake Gyllenhaal to play the Joker in Robert Pattinson's universe. Like, that is one thing I got out of Nightcrawler, is I want that to happen.
That can work.
I think that this performance could feed into a Joker performance from Jake Gyllenhaal that would be really interesting to see. Plus, it'd be kind of interesting because as a plus, because Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal were in Brokeback Mountain together. And then Heath Ledger played the Joker.
Right.
And then if Jake Gyllenhaal got to play the Joker, I'd be like, that's
true.
Cool. Jake Gyllenhaal right here from me, John Vaughn of Film Rush, has my endorsement for the next Joker. But Nightcrawler, well acted, well filmed, just well done all the way around. It just wasn't my cup of tea in terms of performance and plot. It just made my skin crawl, to borrow part of the title, in just not quite the way that I enjoyed. Maybe it was that it was just a wrong night to watch it, but like specifically the scene where he's out to dinner with the lady from the the news network.
The Rene Russo character.
Yeah, that whole conversation, I was just
100% right there with
not comfortable, and I was just like, I'm not in the good kind of uncomfortable. I want the scene to be over. I get why they're doing it. It totally, I'm getting the information I need about his character. I get it. I just don't want to be here. And so that's just kind of how I felt about the movie.
I will agree with that assessment.
So, I mean, when it comes down to a technical scale, if I'm just, judging this on how well the film is made, it's like an 8. If I'm just judging it on my opinion of taste and how I felt about it, it's like a 5. Like, it's fine. I'm never going to watch it again. But, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for checking out Nightcrawler. I mean, I'm bummed you didn't like it more, but I'm not, I guess, super surprised. I think Nightcrawler is kind of one of those niche movies. I'm trying to remember, what are your thoughts on Ryan Gosling's Drive?
I liked it. It's slow. It's much sleepier than Nightcrawler, but I still really enjoyed it.
You liked Drive. Sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess final comment here is, I think that the dividing line for me between these two characters, you've got Gyllenhaal's character in Nightcrawler, and then you've got Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I think that in Nightcrawler, Gyllenhaal is either adapting to the situation, or he is creating the situation, or he's manipulating the situation. And I feel like in Joker, that character really just reacts a lot throughout the movie and makes spontaneous decisions rather than actually plans anything out. But I think that's one of my problems with the Joker is, I want my Joker to be a mad genius, not
I agree.
What we got. Anyway, that's it for me on Nightcrawler.
Cool. So that brings us to the assigning section, where we give each other movies to watch so that we can repeat this process forever and ever until we die. So I'm going to be getting assigned. So Logan, what movie am I going to be watching this next week?
Okay, so I really didn't have a great sales pitch for this movie. I personally didn't care for this all that much, but I do believe, John, that you like classic rock music, and so I was thinking, he's not seen Bohemian Rhapsody. That really feels like a movie that you should have seen by now, so I'm going to throw Bohemian Rhapsody your way. Rami Malek's performance really is good. I don't know that I would say it was the best that year, or maybe top 10 of the decade, but I did enjoy it a lot. It's a really, really good performance. The movie itself, I think, leaves some to be desired. I think I'd rather watch The Greatest Showman over Bohemian Rhapsody again.
Really?
I think Greatest Showman at least has the razzle and the dazzle and the fun and the feel goods and the beautiful peoples and the pretty lights and the nice colors and
it makes my eyeballs go yay.
Yes, Bohemian Rhapsody. It's kind of a roller coaster with those highs and lows of Freddie Mercury's life. Really awesome acting performance. The pacing can be a little bit choppy for me sometimes. I think some of the storytelling felt muddled in the middle of the movie towards the third act. I think it just got a little slow, sleepy, kind of muddled for me. It wasn't my favorite movie going experience. I think I've seen better movies about super famous artists and their struggles once they've achieved fame. This was not one of my favorites, but this is such a critical character, and with it being Freddie Mercury, with it being Queen, I just kind of had a feeling that this is something you should have seen by now, and since you haven't seen it, I wanted to throw it your way and get your thoughts on it. Maybe even give myself a chance to watch it again, because I've only seen it once in theaters. So it's possible that I just wasn't in the mood. It could have been the day for all I know. But I did not have the best experience with this movie, and I kind of want to know what you think.
Yeah, I do like classic rock. Queen wasn't one I was super well versed in. I've definitely listened to their music and enjoyed a lot of their music. I am big into the AC/DCs. I've listened to a lot of Rolling Stones. I do enjoy a bit of Queen every now and then. Rami Malek, I've heard, does a really great performance in here. I'm curious to watch that. it's really a case of, picking between films to watch back in 2018 and based on some reviews, what am I going to watch? And a lot of the reviews said a lot of the same stuff that you did, that the pacing is kind of blah, that it doesn't tell a lot. It kind of glosses over some of the less flattering elements of the Queen story that would have actually been more interesting to have in a film, but they didn't want, because Queen still wants to sell records and a lot of the band members are still alive.
Yep, that's another fair hit.
They don't want to have, too much of the truth or out that may not necessarily reflect nicely. So a lot of people critiqued that element of the film. Now, I've not seen it yet, so I can't speak to that just now, but I will watch this, obviously, because I'm being assigned it. But I still think that one of the, and I may be in the minority here because I've not watched a ton of music legend biopics, but I think one of the gold standards, if not the gold standards of music artists biopics, is Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix as Johnny Cash.
Right.
I've yet to find one that I've watched and I go, I'm going to watch that again as many times as I've watched Walk the Line. I've watched Walk the Line I don't know how many times, and I still enjoy the holy hell of that movie. Perfect casting. Pacing's a little slow, but the story is very interesting, and it's great music. And I was really hoping for that out of Bohemian Rhapsody as well. And maybe I will enjoy it. Maybe I am a minority person who will be like, fuck all the naysayers. I really enjoyed this. I doubt it, but I am curious to watch this, and now I have an excuse. So cool. I will watch Bohemian Rhapsody.
And to be fair, it's been on your watch list for I want to say 9 months or something like that.
A while.
It's been a while. So I was like, you know what? He's had it on there for this long. Even if he hates the movie, it's his own fault. But I was like...
He asked for it.
I was like, Ad Astra, Scoob, A Star is Born. You know what? Let's go with the Bohemian Rhapsody. So there you go, sir.
All right. So the one that I was going to assign you a different movie, but then I noticed something on your list that just baffled the holy shit out of me, considering who you and I are.
Well, can I interrupt and potentially pitch a third movie?
Sure, I suppose.
Did you notice The Judge was on my list? Because I've never seen that, and you could have totally assigned me The Judge tonight, and you still have that chance because you haven't audibly spoken your choice. You have several options, but you were talking about The Judge a lot tonight, and I was like,
notice that.
I was like, did John notice that The Judge is on my list for HBO?
No, because I only got down to this movie because look at where this movie I was going to
fair,
based on your list. I didn't look down that far.
You stopped at Disney Plus, which is above HBO.
We're pulling another Audible, a second Audible in one evening because you're just fucking mean. But hey, this is on you actually because you have it highlighted. The one I was going to assign you was highlighted green, and you said you really wanted to watch it. That's our system, but no.
Yeah, no, take this one.
So actually, fuck that other movie. We're going to assign that later, and you're going to have to sit there and stew, audience, and wonder what it was.
Sweet! I interrupted, and it was good.
Well, hopefully you enjoy this movie because while I acknowledge that this movie has flaws, I very much enjoy it, and I've watched it countless times. We're talking about The Judge. I actually mentioned this earlier. Talk about bringing it back around. This is a Robert Downey Jr., Robert Duvall powerhouse acting film. It's about a estranged son, Robert Downey Jr., returning home because of a family tragedy and unraveling the tumultuous web of family controversy that he left behind when he pieced out of town at a younger age and just basically never came back home to visit because of a very specific event that happened in their past that alienated him from his family. And it's a story about rediscovering that family and why it was a mistake what he did and why other people had made mistakes.
Ooh, this has got Leighton Meester. It's got Dax Shepard. Hell yeah, I love me Dax Shepard. Jeremy Strong and Billy Bob Thornton and Vincent D'Onofrio, Vera Farmiga. What the fuck?
Yeah, it has some awesome actors in here, and I've recognized them throughout all kinds of stuff since The Judge, and I'm glad they've gotten work because they're all really good. I think this film was very unjustly judged. No pun intended, but not really a pun. But anyway, the critic critics at large, when this film came out, basically said it's emotionally manipulative, it's kind of sleepy, a little boring, it's not really that worthwhile, it's kind of a 5 out of 10. And I was like, that's...
Yeah, it's got a 48%.
Yeah, I was like, man, I get not necessarily falling in love with this film, and you may not necessarily like I have, but I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just a movie. I think it's a movie that tells a story about a family that has issues. And I think it does it well. And that's really all it's meant to be. And then I think a lot of people had really high expectations for this movie for some reason. But I just never did. And I found immense enjoyment from it. So I think just go into this expecting to be pleasantly entertained. Don't expect to be blown away. And I think that will service you much better than it did for a lot of the critics who watched it.
Interesting. All right. I'm very curious what I'll think. The critic consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is, I think, so well written. I think it just needs to be read. Solidly cast and beautifully filmed, but thoroughly cliched. The judge seems destined to preside over a large jurisdiction of the basic cable afternoon viewing circuit. That is the front page review of the judge, and it's only a 48%. Is that a compliment? It's destined to do well on television.
It's not a compliment for sure.
Is that a compliment or not? Because I don't think it's a compliment, but you kind of rule it like a compliment. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird how they phrased it. So I don't know. This seems pretty good to me. I, for some reason, had the perception that this was over 3 hours, and I'm seeing it's only 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, thank God it's not that long. It's it better be too long.
So I always had, for some reason, I've always had this little message in my mind that would say, oh, the judge, no, 3 hours, don't watch it. And I don't know why I had that, because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, so that's a little bit odd. But I bet I could also talk Jacqueline into watching this, too. This sounds like something that she might enjoy watching as well. So I will take your challenge and accept it, The Judge of 2014.
Sweet. All right, so I have Bohemian Rhapsody, you have The Judge, and we will see how we feel about those next episode.
Who's to judge?
So if you all want to come back and judge us in the next episode, then go ahead and hit that subscribe or follow, any button that keeps us on your timeline on any platform you're listening to us on, whether it be iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, or YouTube. Stick around. If you're on YouTube, also hit that bell, because I've been told that, if you're subscribed and you don't hit the bell, you'll never know when we release, and that would be just sad. Likes are also a great thing on YouTube. I know I'm kind of harping here on YouTube, but thumbs up goes a long way, and it's super appreciated. Even if you can't subscribe to us and you've maybe got too long of a subscription list, I know I'm there too. A thumbs up would be fantastic. But otherwise, we're glad you stuck around all the way to the end of the episode, and we hope that you return. We'd love to have you back. And we're going to be right back here, same place as always, next week on a Wednesday. So this is goodbye for now, but not forever. Logan, say your goodbyes.
Ooh, I can finally take my glasses off and go back to being dumb and uneducated. All right. See you guys next week.
See you guys next week.